Get your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free.
SQL, pronounced as the individual letters S, Q, and L, or often SQL, is the language used to manage and interact with all relational database management systems. While the specific implementation of the language may vary from vendor to vendor within relational database management software, SQL is designed as a standardized language that is supposed to implement some basic functionality within these programs. The standard functions include running queries on data, modifying the data within the tables, displaying views of the data, and creating and modifying database structures as well as data access. Since the purpose of using SQL is fairly narrowly defined, you may find that SQL seems very simple when compared to other programming languages. SQL, as a standard language, is jointly governed by the ISO, or International Organization for Standardization, and the IEC, or the International Electrotechnical Commission. However, most vendors have included their own vendor-specific extensions to the language. Therefore, you will often encounter vendor-specific variations to the standard SQL when it is encountered in real-world applications. These vendor-specific implementations will often have their own names, such as the Transact SQL that is used within Microsoft SQL Server, for example. The core SQL, as defined by the IEC and ISO, is mandatory and supported by all of the major database management systems, regardless of their own specific implementations and extensions. This course will most often refer to the core SQL within its examples, but will also reference variations used by specific implementations within some database management systems when needed. The core SQL statements you will learn, which have not changed very much since 1999, will allow you to accomplish almost everything necessary to create and manage a database. Also, most RDBMS implementations, such as SQL Server and Microsoft Access, will require that you add a semicolon to the end of any executable SQL statements you create. While this is a standard that has been widely implemented, note that the examples of the core SQL shown in this course will not show a semicolon at the end of the examples shown, as they're simply demonstrating the core SQL that can be used and are not literal examples of SQL for any specific relational database management system unless otherwise specified by the example. The statements within standard SQL can be thought of as being grouped into four categories: data definition, alternately description language, called DDL, data manipulation language, called DML, data control language, called DCL, and transaction control language, or TCL. The statements within the data definition language, such as create, alter, and drop, allow you to create the database container, tables, and other database objects. The statements within the data manipulation language, such as select, insert, and update, allow you to manage the data contained within the tables. The data control language statements, such as grant and revoke, allow you to determine who can access data within the database and set referential integrity. The transactional control language statements, such as commit and roll back, manage the actual transactions that occur within a database. The SQL statements, most often thought of by new SQL users, are contained within the DML statement set. This is where you will find the select statement, which is used to create queries on data, as well as the insert, update, and delete statements that are used to add, edit, and remove data from tables. The most current revision of the original ANSI standard of SQL as of this writing is the SQL 2011 version. This is the 7th revision of the original SQL standard. The most interesting but optional new feature of this revision is that it includes new standards for support and implementation of temporal databases. A temporal database is a database that supports extensive data handling involving time. This is contrasted with most databases, which are referred to as current databases, in that the data contained within them is assumed to be true currently until the data is deleted or updated. In a temporal database, however, each record is often qualified with a valid date timestamp, valid date time period, or valid date time interval. This can then indicate the time duration of when that information was deemed to be valid or true. Note that most users will not be dealing with temporal databases, and vendor implementation of this new standard is still not widespread as of 2014, although both IBM DB2 and Oracle have implemented queries that address this issue with their respective time traveler queries and flashback queries.
Like what you see? Pick up your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free.